Greetings from Dallas, Texas. Shout out Brittany for hosting this dope event. Love the energy. I've been on tuning in to all of the folks presenting here. I'm definitely going to be a little bit more conversational as well. And I'll also pull up some slides so you can see a little bit about what we do. So out of all the groups I heard today, we're probably the most, I would say, creative and say non-traditional. So a little bit about myself. I'm a Midwestern, so shout out to the last song that the DJ had on there for all my Midwesterns. I might have did the chicken head too hard, and that's why the internet went out over here. So, but originally from the Midwest, moved to Dallas about a decade ago. And just hit the ground running. A little bit about me, though. I come from a non-traditional background in terms of how I got to where I am, you could say as a VC or in venture capital or just in the capital space. Um, I come from really a Swiss Army knife background of entrepreneurship, corporate finance, impact investing, philanthropy, and also I would say civic engagement, kind of community organizing. So our approach at Impact Ventures takes a very, I would say, contrast approach to traditional venture. Not that traditional venture is bad. I think our last speaker kind of gave you some insights on the return profiles that they're looking for, 20x, 50x, right? And unfortunately, this event is for Black and Brown founders. So unfortunately, what we saw in the market is that traditionally Black and Brown founders don't fit the profile of a high growth venture capital, rent and scale and sell and repeat model. And we recognize at the same time, we are 3 times as likely to be denied business loans, than our white counterparts. We can't just walk into Bank of America, Wells Fargo, et cetera. Great companies, by the way, supporters of ours, and get access to capital because there are some policy and some structural things that need to change. And so Impact Ventures stands in the gap to help address those systemic and structural barriers when it comes to access to capital. But we all know that access to capital alone is not the only thing that is going to help us solve the wealth gap in this country. We need the social capital, we need the mentorship, the education. All of that is a component of being a great entrepreneur. And so a little bit about Impact Ventures. We believe that genius is everywhere. However, access and opportunity is not. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. All right. I guess you guys can see what I can see. All right. Okay, it looks like there might be a bit of a lag, but you guys can see what I can see. So our mission is to empower talented yet underestimated women and communities of color to build generational wealth through inclusive entrepreneurship and integrated capital. Again, a little bit about our history. We were founded in 2017 to really create a more equitable and diverse ecosystem here in North Texas. And obviously with, the things that have happened over the last 18 months or 2 years or so with the pandemic, we've been able to scale our footprint across the country. So far, we launched our flagship Accelerator in 2020. We've been able to train 120 founders from the North Texas area and as well as across the U.S. They've collectively raised about 6.5 million in capital, and we've created over 133 jobs. So I'll go a little bit more into some of our impact metrics here a little bit. But the way we kind of work, and I know some of these areas are more interesting to you around capital. So I'll talk a little bit about ecosystem building, from how we do community events, narrative change, our summits, and some of our lunch and learn workshops. Through inclusive entrepreneurship, we actually offer two accelerator track programs, which I'll get into. In integrated capital, we're using flexible debt, patient equity, and strategic grant making in a way. So we're a little bit non-traditional in terms of your traditional VCs. And I'm going to dive into some of those in a little bit. So as I mentioned, we've trained 120 founders, 84 companies have gone through our programs. We are coming up on our fifth cohort, where we've just in the last program itself, we've engaged over 160 mentors across the US in our program. So we are heavily involved in mentorship and training with over 4,100 hours of training and mentor provided to our entrepreneurs. A little bit about our team. Again, we all come from a very diverse background. Myself coming from more of the capital space. Lucy Hoang is our chief program officer who comes to us with 12 years of entrepreneurship, where she's actually exited her company, a retail company. Before that, she spent about 15 years in the corporate technology space. She has a very interesting story about how she said no to Apple when they were creating the iPhone, when she was working with Texas Instruments. But she is our product person, so she comes from a product development, product management space. Holly Burrows, our senior program officer that works with Lucy through our accelerator program. She comes from the CDFI, small business lending space. And then Jennifer James is our senior impact investing officer that also comes from a CPG background. She's worked with brands, indie brands, from beauty to natural products, and getting them into big box retailers. And so we have a very diverse team. And Anissa just joined us as our marketing and events manager. Some of these brands you probably know. We work with a lot of the big corporations as partners and supporters of our work. Again, shout out to Silicon Valley Bank for being a great partner of ours and a sponsor of this event. Many of you are probably aware of the Black Innovation Alliance, where it is actually a coalition of accelerator programs across the U.S. that are working together to help share resources and support Black and Brown founders. Just to give you some insight into our process, obviously we have an accelerator. We also have a fund, very different than some of the other presenters that presented today. We actually have an invite-only application process. We created an event called Accelerate You. It's basically an info session that allows you to get some insight into our program to make sure that not only is it a right fit for us, but it's a right fit for you. We particularly focus, I'd say, on that building to growth stage. We don't focus on idea stage companies. We're in that early to growth stage. And so once a founder attends our Accelerate You session and says, hey, this looks like a good fit, we'll invite him to Accelerate Growth session. At that session, they will learn about our viral model, which we leverage in partnership with Village Capital. And in that, they will actually go through a strategic growth planning process on key areas of the business. And then they'll be invited to apply for the accelerator program. The accelerator program is really designed for both, I would say, traditional businesses in terms of consumer products and goods, as well as technology businesses. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Our program is milestone driven, and it's really built around that viral growth framework that I talked about. I'll show you guys that at the end. With a big emphasis on education, but actually in the market education. So not just sitting and learning, but actually putting these the things that you're learning into play through your milestones. And so we do a whole milestoning planning exercise with your lead advisor, where you plan out really the next 18 to 24 months of your company and where you should focus. So we really focus on the building. I think it was one of the presenters earlier that was talking about glorifying the building stage. That's kind of where we focus at. And then we also talk about raising capital as well. As I mentioned, both tracks are simultaneously ran twice a year. Our LEAP track program, if those folks that are on the call that are from the North Texas area, is primarily looked at if you are a consumer product company or good company or a service-based company. We have a minimum of 2 to 3 years in business operations, and you're moving towards that growth stage. That's really looking at 100K or more in revenue. I would say some of our success coming out of the LEAP program is getting companies into, like I said, big box realtors. Slides are not advancing. All right. One second, y'all. All right, looks like we are moving now. All right, I'm getting the thumbs up. Okay. So we're talking about the LEAP program and our North Texas-based company. So if you're on today and you're from the North Texas area or Texas in general, that program is definitely designed for consumer products. So if you're consumer products, consumer good, or service-based industry, this program is definitely designed for you. And our inclusive innovation program is also, I would say, North Texas-based, but also nationwide, with the emphasis on, we say Texas, but really the Southeast and areas that have been historically excluded from venture. That's basically Silicon Valley, parts of California, Boston, New York, some of those areas. And I'll talk a little bit of why we focused on consumer products instead of doubling down on venture and high growth. And so if you're on that inclusive innovation side, you're a tech-based company or tech-enabled company, we like you to have a validated MVP in terms of some traction in terms of customers or sales, at least 2 years in business operations, and you're looking from that early to growth stage, so that really that pre-seed to seed stage. Yes, LA. We've had companies from Ontario. We've had companies from Alaska, California, LA, Atlanta. We've had companies from all over participate and be really successful with raising subsequent rounds of capital. So that's a little bit about two of the tracks. Obviously, you know, some general things about what Accelerator offer, but I'll say some of our strong points are, I would say, the level of expertise in our mentor network, from C-suite executives in the financial space, from companies like Alchemy that just went public, to the chief experience officer for TGI Fridays. As you all know, Dallas-Fort Worth is a corporate mecca. And so we've been able to tap into the social capital and intellectual capital that's in our region, as well as across the U.S. So also in our program, we also provide grants to the top 3 to 4 companies that participate in our program. Those grants go from anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 in the program. And I'll talk a little bit about how we look at how we decide how those grants are allocated. It is an intensive program, so we go 3 days a week: Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Tuesdays are our workshop days. Thursdays are lab days. Labs are basically when you have an issue or anything that you've learned on Tuesday, we actually help you implement that on Thursday along with mentors. So you'll be in breakout sessions with maybe 4 to 5 mentors that are helping you implement what you actually learn. A lot of times what we found in our research and actually listening to founders is that when they would participate in accelerators, they'd get to the end and they find that I've learned all this information, but I haven't been able to implement anything. And so we focus both on learning, but also real-time implementation. The other part is on Saturdays. We use Viral framework to do peer-to-peer reviews. Essentially, you are role-playing where your partner is putting on their investor hat and you're practicing what we call conviction. One of the most, I would say, undervalued and both hard to track quality in a founder is confidence. And we found that through our program, through repetition of proving conviction, like how convicted you are that you're at a certain stage or that your business had a certain level of traction, we found that actually has helped increase confidence when they have an opportunity to speak with investors, because they know exactly what they know, what they don't know, and what they're reaching out to find out and to learn. And so Saturdays are all about peer-to-peer viral sessions. Again, you have your assigned advisor mentor. your IV team advisor as well, and then you have a group of subject matter expert mentors, kind of like your Fab Five, that we kind of curate based on personality, based on gender, and based on skill set and industry that we align with the organization. There's also weekly deliverables as well when you go through the program. Again, I talked about those small business grants. We call them equity in motion grants. And the way we kind of divvy those out is a combination of their program engagement. So do you attend the sessions? Are you engaged? Do you have your camera on? Basic stuff like that in terms of engage. Are you asking questions? We also focus on the company viability. So what does your company look like in terms of traction, this opportunity for scalability, basically the viability of it being a successful company. And then lastly, we do a pitch at the end, which is more of an internal versus an external pitch with advisors, investors, and mentors and corporate executives. And that's worth 20% of the grade. So a combination of those scoring is how we score who gets those grants. Again, I talked about funding readiness. This is an example of the viral tool. As you see at the end, we've actually created both equity investments as well as debt options that you can kind of see where your company might align. Unfortunately, this is only 5 of the sections that we talk about in the Accelerate Growth, but the actual viral has 8 different categories. So this is just 5 of the 8 categories that we really look at. And essentially, you are benchmarking yourself on where you are in terms of your traction. In these 8 categories, I know it's only 5 on here, but we typically, the full version is 8. And your goal over the next 12 to 18 months is to improve 1 category in each level. And then
hey,
also,
friend. Sorry,
what's up?
I know I don't want to interrupt you because you are dropping so much valuable information. But I wanted to we have some questions in the chat, so I wanted to get some time to ask those before we wrap up.
Okay, yeah, let's go straight to Q&A if you'd like.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Yes, for the gems. Clap, clap, bravo.
Yes. I didn't even get to the fun side. I know that's probably what folks wanted to hear. But let's take some questions.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of people ask this one. Do you invest in real estate development?
We do. So we do real estate deals, but they have to be local to DFW.
That's a great question. I mean, that makes sense. Do you accept international startups or startups based in Africa?
So not at the moment. We've had several apply over the past years, but we do not do international at the moment.
I love how you answer questions just like boop boop. I love it. So can you join the Accelerator pre-revenue?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It depends. Like most investors will tell you, most programs it will tell you, because we invested in a company that was pre-revenue that had a white label agreement, right, for multi-six-figure deals, right? But it was pre-revenue. So it really depends on what the company looks like. We look at obviously the partners. Do you have revenue lined up? What are the gaps in the company and what's causing them to be pre-revenue? If it's a technology issue, i.e., you don't have a CTO, or maybe you outsource your technology and, you need funding to get, those are some long-term issues that we really can't solve right away. So we encourage them to apply, or we send them to a resource that might be able to help solve whatever problem that they have.
Perfect. On the Accelerator side, do you need a history of 100K revenue? Oh, so ARR of 100K, or can you apply to the Accelerator the moment you hit it?
You can apply the moment you hit it. You can apply even if you're at 50K. What our team really looks at is our value add, right? And so it's not about, do you hit those numbers? And as you see, when I said around it says flexible. It's not about, are you at those numbers today? It's all about, are you tracking towards that? Like, do you have a model that'll actually allow you to hit that goal? And how can our team provide our support to get you to that stage? Right. For example, we had a company that is doing like seafood jerky, dried seafood jerky, right? Yes, I was amazed when I saw it, and then I tasted it, and it was amazing. He has 4 different flavors, but when he came in, he was, kind of at that 50K, to 80K in revenue. But by
Yeah.
the time he graduated the program, he increased his purchase orders. He was getting into Whole Foods, into Royal Blue Grocer. So we were really able to scale his efficiency and really help him prioritize where he should focus on selling his product. Most of the time, especially in the CPG space, everyone wants to hop on Amazon and sell their product there. But sometimes that's not always the most cost efficient method. And so we help actually teach founders what are all the options that I have to sell my product that can be advantageous and be able to align flexible capital with that. So I didn't get to talk much about the fund, but if you'd like me to just do a quick overview, if folks
Sure.
have questions. So the way we look at integrated capital is really a blend of grants, debt, and equity. So we do revenue-based financing. So we basically will do a minimum of 50K. So our check size is 50K to 250K on our loans, right? Or you can do a line of credit, a term line of credit, which is something that, if you don't have established business credit, these all things are hard to get in
Right.
traditional capital providers. On our equity side, we do a minimum of 100K to 250K. And so we're primarily doing seed stage investing on our equity side. And we're doing that, I would say, early stage to growth capital on our debt side. So we're able to provide both options. Sometimes tech companies that have, let's say, a SaaS company that has a predictable revenue stream, sometimes they can take out what's called venture debt. That's based on them tracking to a price round, where they're able to almost, float, the capital coming in while they're setting up their price round. So it's based on a price, being able to execute a price round.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're very unique in that option where we can provide various forms of capital.
No, I love it. And I mean, I like that you offer a potential line of credit because that often is a barrier to entry on the debt and equity side of just showing the history of your
Yeah.
financials. So that's the flexibility is great. So you talked about some of the well, more or less some of the advantages of the accelerator, but I would actually like to learn a couple more. But so if you could highlight, 1 to 2 advantages of the accelerator and then maybe 1 to 2 disadvantages of doing an accelerator program, specifically with yours.
With ours. Yeah. So I would say one of the disadvantages is misalignment. And I know that founders, like being a former founder myself, we look at accelerators like, well, what do they do for me, right? Well, what are they good for? And what you really have to do is research, is this program align with what your needs are, right? There's accelerators that are more product focused. There are accelerators that are more capital focused. Shout out to Founders Gym. If you want to learn anything about raising capital, that's probably a great program for you. However, what I feel like the disadvantages come is when there's a misalignment. For example, if you do that program and you're not ready to raise capital, right? You don't get to take advantage of all the strategic connections that you get in that program because you got one opportunity to meet with them and they're like, oh, but you're not ready. Oh, you come back in 6 months. By that time,
Mhm.
they've already invested in another company that's in your space,
Right.
right? Now their portfolio is full. And that's just one example. So for us, it's really about alignment on both ways. Does your current stage and what your needs are over the next 12, 18 months align with what we're able to offer, right? So I
Right.
would say that's more the disadvantage. On the advantage side, I would say being able to, most founders are driven by passion and the ability to solve a problem, right, in the marketplace, right? Most founders don't come with a business degree or with a background going to B school, right? So they don't know actually how to run a business, right? When I say, like, that's going from like founder to like CEO mind, right? Those are 2 different mentalities and 2 different stages of the company, right? So we tell our founders to envision a decade or 10 years when your company is successful. What is your role? What is the job description of a CEO, right? Right now, as a founder, that job description is probably 10 pages long. It's, you're the accountant, you're the
Mhm.
marketer person. If you got a technology background, you're probably fixing code, all those things, depending on your background, and your vantage point. And so, one of the things that we really tell them is like, how do you get founders to think more strategically like a CEO, right? And think about, I can't do this on my own. I had a founder that told me he didn't need capital. I said, well, who does all your shipping? He said, I do. I said, who does all your marketing? I do. Who books all your influencer campaigns and your influencer? I do. I said, it sounds like you have a capacity issue, right?
Mm,
Well, if you have a capacity issue, you probably need capital, right, to hire the people that you need, right?
right,
And so I think sometimes we come into this like mindset or this mentality that we can do it all ourselves, right? And I think that's one of the advantages that our program allows you to kind of look at it from a 30,000 foot level and
right,
look at those 8 different categories across your business and really understand each one of them. If you come from a marketing background, you're probably going to have strong branding, you're probably going to have strong messaging, and we see that a lot. But then when you open up the hood and you say, let me
right.
look at the financials, it's a mess, right? And so I think we really provide that balanced way for founders to really think strategically about their business.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I have we're actually out of time, but I do have like one question cuz almost like a mixture of all these different
yes.
questions. If you could attract, like if you could kind of what am I trying to say? Personify an ideal company that would be great for impact ventures, what would that look like? Cuz we have questions about what are you investing in and all these different things.
Yeah.
If you could personify an ideal founder, what would that look like?
So it's not just one. I would say it's 3 types of founders, right? I would say it is your founder that is heavily involved in consumer products or consumer goods, i.e., you're trying to get into the shelves, either in big box retailers, indie stores, indie brands, etc. You're trying to push a consumer product or good, right? So that's one archetype or profile. The other one is your traditional SaaS or technology-based company, right, with maybe a lens on education or health, or it doesn't really matter the vertical, but in that technology SaaS kind of space, mobile. And the last one I would say is like if you're a scalable service based businesses. So this is more of your traditional legacy businesses that I would say, let's say you have a roofing company, a painting company, um, a construction company, a company that can do business with other businesses or get government contracting, right? But you're able to employ people, you're able to create jobs. So I would say those are the 3 profiles that we typically look at.
Amazing. Benjamin, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your insight. I see in the chat people saying, I love these gems. Like, we really do appreciate you and we thank you for having you. It was nice to meet you too,
Definitely. Yes. Nice to
friend.
meet you. We need to connect after it.
No,
Yeah,
we
definitely get to
definitely
know.
do. We
This is
definitely
awesome. I was glad I could be here. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but
What would
it's
a
all good.
conference be without some tech difficulties, right?
Right, right, right.
Well, have a great day. We'll see you soon. Thank you.